Hello and welcome to the North Bank Podcast. I'm your host, Holly, and I'm joined by Steph and Chris. Hello, guys.
Hello.
Hello.
It's a bit Groundhog Day-ish. I fear we're going to have a very similar conversation to previous conversations about the inability of our team to create and take chances. We are, of course, talking about the 1-1 draw at Old Trafford against, statistically, the poorest Man United team in several decades. And yet we conspired to make them look bloody good.
Yeah.
Well, better than us. So look, we'll go through the game, obviously. Steph, you were at the game. I think rather than getting your takeaways, we were boosted by the pre-game news that Martinelli was on the bench, which I think was a surprise to absolutely everybody. Starting lineup was pretty predictable. Well, I say pretty predictable. Chris, you predicted it. I was 3 players out. So not that predictable, I guess. But Steph, look, Arsenal United, historically, it's a game for the ages down the years. You were at Old Trafford. Just kind of give us a sense of what the atmosphere was like. I know they were protesting. I don't know if you saw any of that. What the atmosphere was like in the build-up to the game. And with the team news revelation in particular that Martinelli was on the bench. Don't go into the game, just like atmosphere, soaking up, back, build-up and so on. What was it like?
Well, on the way up, there were starting to be reports that Martinelli was with the matchday squad, and yeah, that gave everyone a little bit of a lift. Maybe if they were going to have him on the bench, then there would be a chance that he could feature, and that could instill some impetus. Weirdly, once I sort of got there and had gone into the ground, I'd gone into the ground relatively early. There was lots of talk about the protests, and I'll come back to that in a second. But once inside and meeting a couple of people that we knew, especially who'd gone up with our supporters club but not travelled with us, everyone didn't really know how to be, because it should have been a big game, but it sort of wasn't a big game. Both teams clearly have a focus on Europe. We obviously have to still consolidate our place in the league, but it was kind of like there wasn't necessarily the edge that there sometimes is. Feels too early to use the phrase dead rubber, but I don't know. There's just this thing about how no one really knows how to feel about it. That said, I'd got into the ground about, half hour, 45 minutes before kickoff. While we were inside with a drink, just having a chat and, thinking about how the game and the season might go. Lots of us talking about how we might go to Madrid. A couple of other people we knew who'd come in later said it was all kicking off outside. And, literally, one of our mates' girlfriend was, visibly shaking. And what had transpired was the protest had happened, which I think was either approaching the ground or had certainly circulated the ground, but had obviously come to the area where the away fans go into the ground. And not having seen it, I can't fully sort of cover exactly what happened, but whether it was a mix of the fans in the protest being a little bit, carried away and volatile. I don't know whether it was Arsenal fans, meeting them and maybe giving a bit to them, or whether they were, security and police just kind of not necessarily managing the situation. I don't know. What I do know from the people I got it from secondhand was basically bottles, cans were flying, a few punches thrown. The barriers that you walk into, they sort of kettle you into the barriers the same way they do into our entrances, so you can get all the pat downs and everything like that. Well, the surges of people had basically pulled those down, and led to what sounded like just a little bit of chaos, which is a real shame because that's just rubbish. With the range of people that go to a ground, and the people I'm sure in the middle of that who wouldn't absolutely no part in that sort of thing, but also because I was quite vocal on the way up, because a few people were sort of rolling their eyes at the protest, because I think there's this trend now where people equate fan protest because they're not winning stuff, and I'm sure there are one or two individuals where it's just like, oh, I just want success for my team and blah blah blah. But actually, United, of all the things that they've done, and we can talk about, the 2 pence size pizzas that they're serving up in the canteen and all those sorts of things as well. They've got rid of concessions on tickets. I think that's disgusting, because whatever you think about rising price of tickets, and it is happening everywhere. We talked about it recently with ours and our 5% rise on our season tickets. To get rid of concessions blanket is a real middle finger up to the fans, because the reason that there are concessions is cheaper tickets for younger fans to get them in. That's your future. Again, I'm going to use these horrible phrases. That's your future clientele and your future customer. Give them a bit of a discount to start with, get them through the door, because football, let's face it, is a drug. It's like The Godfather 3. Just when I think I'm out, they pull me back in. And it's one of those things. We're having a terrible season. You can bet your bottom dollar that basically in August I'll be like, come on, here we go, new season. And then for the older fans, the people who have paid for years and years and years, a little bit of a kickback when they're retiring and their earning potential drops a little bit. It's the system we all buy into. Everywhere does it. And does that concession thing. So for Man U to get rid of that is absolutely just, so I can totally understand why the fans are protesting. For it to get out of hand and turn into the situation it seemed to in the run up to kickoff, I just think everyone's like lost sight of that.
Can I just jump in with two observations to what you said? First of all, in relation to the trouble, I haven't seen anything about it.
Nothing.
No, nothing at all. And I'm wondering, is it just because there was an unusually large group of people landing at the ground at the same time?
Oh, I'm
untypically,
sure.
And I know that the Arsenal fans were singing at one point, "We want Glazers in," and so on. And it kind of, you can imagine them doing that. And you're absolutely right. Everything you said about the concessions there and ticket pricing, it's like the refereeing. It's not a one club problem. It's an everybody problem. And just on that, Ratcliffe did an interview today. I don't know, it's dropped in certain places, and he was like, he's claiming poverty. He's saying, "Oh, the club would be bankrupt by Christmas 25." And first of all, read the room. Is he just treating everybody for absolute muppets? Well, yes, clearly. Ignoring the fact that how much did Dan Ashworth cost him in the end?
£14 million.
Holy cow. Right, so there's your bankrupt by Christmas. I'd love to know how much they have saved. He talks about there was a bill for £170,000 for a body language expert. He talks about things like that. So, okay, fine. You add up all the savings you've made, and I bet it doesn't scratch the surface of your £14 million error with Dan Ashworth. And how much did it cost him to get rid of Ten Hag and his lot?
I don't know the figure on that one.
It's 5 or 6 million.
Oh, easy.
For him.
Easy.
Right, so there's 20 to 22 million on two mistakes. They should have got rid of Ten Hag in the summer. How much did he spend in the summer? 200 million? Anyway, so if I was a United fan, I would be...
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was a sign, I don't know if you saw it, Steph, in the ground with the United fans at the tunnel end, was it? Stop exploiting our loyalty or something?
They've had that up a few times, and it's part of the Football Supporters Association movement. What they're trying to do, the Football Supporters Association, is they're trying to unify all clubs to put pressure on the clubs that, yes, there might have to be cost-cutting measures, because football is this bubble that we've said for many years. I don't know if this whole bubble burst thing, because, everything in some aspects seems to be growing, but there's definitely a case of football sort of eating itself. And the problem is, these clubs are expecting us to pay for it. And we're not rich people. We like following our football team, and we pay hundreds, if not thousands, in order to do so. But we all have limits.
We will stop.
There will be a point. The problem is, and I say this as a problem, but the flaw in that, any kind of unified fan response, I mean, it takes such buy-in from a number of people that it is so difficult to do, and that's why, I think there is something in our culture, I don't know what it is, that doesn't do it. You've seen fan movements in Germany is obviously held up as like the big sort of like beacon of fan protest, the whole 49-51 ownership thing that they've certainly gone against. In Italy, there's a big fan movement, but it tends to be in that kind of ultra movement that sort of puts pressure on the clubs for a number of decisions, and they carry a lot of power. But in Britain, I don't know, that tribalism, the whole thing the Premier League is sold on, the rivalries and everything like that, I think at some point, like you say, that's got to be put aside. And the reason they held up the sign there, because someone near me sort of said, well, the Glazers aren't going to see that. And I said, no, but the cameras will. And that's what it's all about.
Yeah.
When the camera is watching, they literally have the camera on the ball on the pedestal, which in itself, that sums up the Premier League, doesn't it? And it's above the tunnel, the players come out, and it's right there. It's right there. I'm sure they did it. I think it was Fulham earlier in the season. But a lot of clubs are buying into this. I know the FSA and the Arsenal Supporters Trust put out a joint statement saying that they do like a lot of the changes Arsenal have recently made to the season ticket price changes and the ability to have a few more options. But both were also very keen to stress that it's nowhere near perfect, and the fans, ultimately, it probably doesn't favour them on one side.
Well, on Arsenal, just briefly, we not only the 5% season ticket hike that we're suffering in the lower tier for next season, but putting the PSV game as a Cat A is coming home to roost now, because I wonder how many empty seats there will be on Wednesday.
Yep.
And that's interesting.
Yep. And again, the optics of that won't be great. I did hear something today, and I haven't checked this for myself actually, because I'm someone who can't really do the midweek games, but I will always use ticket transfer to give it to someone I know, because if I can do that for friends or family, I absolutely will. Or the ticket exchange for anyone to then sort of go on to. But even the tickets just aren't going on the ticket exchange, because you're 7-1 up from the first leg, and it's the most expensive a price of a ticket.
The cheapest ticket is 70 quid.
Ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous.
That's disgusting.
Yeah, exactly. And the problem is the club just seems so reluctant to shift that and just change it and, offer refunds to the people who have already paid the difference, or go on from there. I
suppose their argument would be, well, we didn't know we were going to win 7-1, and therefore,
But that game shouldn't be Cat A. The first knockout game shouldn't be a Cat A.
There's no argument for that.
I guess that's debatable, yeah.
It should be Cat B, tops.
If it was against a bigger team...
Doesn't matter. It's a knockout ground.
Can I make a suggestion? How about a Category A game? Cheapest ticket in the ground should probably not be 70 quid. Because the 70 quid is massive. It's massive.
And,
But this is where, we've argued this before about... we're the ones that get it in the neck when they're raking in from all sorts of other avenues, the sponsorships, and the gate receipts are a piss in the ocean compared to what they get in.
But they don't care. They don't care about Wednesday because they've sold all the tickets. The tickets have been paid for.
In theory, yeah.
So it's like...
The other thing as well, I mean, Arsenal pay, I think on average, we do pay the highest prices in Europe for our tickets, on average. Yeah, there might be individual more expensive tickets at certain clubs in different times. I'm sure, I don't know, Real Madrid's like club level package is probably astronomical, but Arsenal on average play the highest season ticket prices. And yet, we talk about our wage bill for players is fifth. We haven't won the league in how long? I don't want to be that guy who says, we're paying the highest, but we're not necessarily getting like the top. We're getting there, but I just feel there's a real disconnect, basically. Yeah.
Okay. After you processed the news of trouble outside, How was the kind of atmosphere in the 10-15 minutes up to kick off?
Yeah, generally good. And even slightly after kick-off, in the first sort of period of the game, everyone was fairly buoyant. I think we all know we have the perspective on the league and the situation that's in, but at the same time, there's the Champions League, like we said last time, the best team doesn't always win it. On paper, we're probably not the best team, but we have a bloody good defence, one of the best in Europe, and who knows in cup competitions, because teams do play us differently. Can I just also reference, because I've revisited a couple of clips from the last episode, we absolutely called this United game. I said it would be 1-1 for a start, so I got the fixture right. I also said United would sit deep and stink out the place, and they'd probably score from a set piece. But ultimately our overall point was it's going to be a completely different game to PSV, because in Europe and in the cup competitions, teams just will open up more and will go for it more. In the Premier League, these teams are just coached to, within an inch of their life, they sit deep and they hit you on transition, and that's the way it starts.
Especially against us.
Especially against us, which is a sign of respect.
I've got a couple of stats.
We need a sting at that moment. Stat dad.
Stat dad. What's he going to say? Stat dad. Come on then. I'll work on it.
Our last 51 shots in the Premier League has yielded 1 goal. Our last 51 shots in the Champions League has yielded 13 goals. So, Arteta, I won't say stormed out, but he walked away from a question which was couched as, is it because of a lack of a striker? And he got annoyed by that. Now, I don't know why he got annoyed by that. It's not as simple as that, but because my question to you two is our problem solved by a striker, or is it a systemic problem? Because I think and if he's walked away because it's a lack of a striker, then I'm not sure he's thought it through, or is not because it's as straightforward as a missing striker, because then it comes down to him and his inability to set the team up to open up the low blocks. We've had the statistics before about how we perform against low block teams, but and you say that we've got a brilliant defence. Listen to these stats, and this is in relation to David Raya. Last season, he played 32 Premier League games for us, and he made 45 saves. Yeah, 45 saves, right? This season, in 28 games, he's made 69 saves.
Okay.
Last season, we allowed 83 shots on target in 38 games. This season, in 28 games, we're already up to 93. So defensively, and that's my view, the eye test as well. We've given up a lot of chances, even against PSV. This is mad, but against PSV, we were lucky to be 1-0 up. Okay, so I'm not sure how solid defensively we are. And is it because we're trying to compensate for the attack, perhaps? I don't know. But this goes back to time when we've had our players available. Look, missing Saka and Ødegaard's going to make a difference. Of course it is. But we've got an issue systemically with coming up against the low block. Now, we know this, but it's ongoing for such a long time that I'm not convinced that a striker is going to be the quick fix that we think it will be. More and more teams are going to set up as a low block against us because it's effective.
I think that's playing into your stats about the number of saves that Raya is making, weirdly, because I think teams are setting up in a low block. We do that thing now where it's almost like a forward line of like 5 players, because 2 players go so far wide and then 3 others, 1 centrally and 2 either side, occupy that. that means that if that low block turnover possession, they break quickly and it leads to a chance of some kind. Because weirdly, yes, Raya has made a lot of those saves, and there seem to be a few at the start of the season. I think I seem to remember the Villa one that was palmed away, and there was a Wolves one where he was sort of scrabbling aside. But yesterday was the first game in a while where I thought, wow, those were amazing saves. So I think the quality of save probably could be, the XS is the X save a thing, like in reverse to XG. I don't think it is. Like it's like the inverse of XG. Because teams know that is effective now. Because, like you say, our counter for a low block team is just to try and squeeze even more. The thing I was crying out for yesterday, which was why I was so glad to see Martinelli on again, speed. I want to inject some speed. Now, that's not a striker running in behind. That's a winger or a midfielder running at the players that I probably want to see as well added to the team somewhere along the line.
Okay, on the game then. I mean, the first half was a complete non-event. It was like death by 1,000 cuts. We had a few half chances. Like Marino had one. He dragged wide. Trossard, and I'm sorry, I'm relabeling him again. Drossard had a couple of half chances. Erdegaard had a half chance, but there were no gilt-edged chances. United had a couple of positive moments where Garnacho ran at Calafiori, but it was like my mate was at the game as a United fan, and he said everybody in the ground was just completely bored, senseless. There was nothing. And I've seen Amorim apologise. We won't always play like that. We won't always do that. But it works against us. They've taken 2 points off us and knocked us out of the FA Cup playing like that. Our own profligacy as well. But so what was Chris, okay, were you looking forward to the game 5 minutes before kickoff? How were you feeling, and how were you feeling at half-time?
I didn't expect us to go gung-ho like the PSV game from the off, because like we've said, it's not the same game. With PSV, the way they set up, I think we said in the last pod, the fact that they played badly was not irrelevant, but it just meant that they set up in a way that we could exploit them immediately, regardless of how they played. And I thought with United, we knew they were going to get their 5 across the back, drop off, deny us space. And so I wasn't expecting from the off, but I was kind of pleasantly surprised that we basically controlled it from the off in the way that we did. There was a lot of that kind of busyness in midfield, and I was feeling quite up. But then as the half wore on, I was thinking, this is shaping up to be another one of those days where give it to Erdegaard. He does his little pirouettes, maybe does one of those little chippy passes over to try and set someone through. And it just took on a very familiar pattern. And I think that's when we started messaging, and my messaging started to get more and more irate with that kind of, here we go again. We've seen this game before, and the inevitable.
Right. So there's been a lot of talk about the Fernandes free kick. So let me ask you, Chris, you're talking. Let me ask you first, and Steph, answer this question. Simple question. Steph, behave yourself. Who do you blame for the goal, or what do you blame for the goal?
I guess if we're going to blame, look, it was a good free kick. He struck it really well. I think it was
about 2 or 3 yards inside the post. It wasn't even in the corner.
But the keeper was too far over.
So Raya's fault.
If we're going to apportion a bit of blame, then that's where I would put it. But...
Steph.
Ding, 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 Raya, all day long.
I'm going to disagree.
He got it over
hold
the
on,
ball, which is more than Erdegaard did in the second half.
I'm going to disagree, Steph, just because I've asked the question deliberately just so I can give my answer. I'm blaming Trossard for the goal.
What, for giving away the foul?
He gave away he gave away the ball and then conceded the free kick. He compounded his first mistake by fouling him. Like, you effing idiot. How many points has he cost us this season?
Well,
Sorry.
That's
who I'm blaming for the goal.
We haven't even talked about the second half and the way we tried to...
No, absolutely.
But no, absolutely right. Because in that same instance, bearing in mind this is the other end to the pitch to us, and Old Trafford's a bit of a, it's a big old stadium, like it's quite far away, but we all saw it. Before he'd even taken the free kick, everyone's going, stupid, absolutely stupid. We've been controlling the game. What you don't want to do is give them any kind of chance. So it was a stupid free kick to give away. You're absolutely right. Then when he's setting up, literally, guy I go with, and who I'm going to Madrid with, Dave, just nudged me and went, why is Raya stood over there?
Yeah.
Like, what's he doing? It was almost like, well, my wall's covering it. You're going to hit there. Or he was trying to do that thing of like daring him. And then as soon as he's shaping up, just kind of run across. I thought it was awful keeping. I just don't understand the psychology of the whole thing. It was a real error.
I think I agree with you, Holly, in that, Trossard is to blame in the sort of first phase of it. But then once you've conceded it, you need to defend the free kick. And that's what we didn't do. It's like Spurs moaning when we got the corner that wasn't and then we scored from it. It's, well, deal with it. Okay, you get the breaks go against you sometimes, but then you just have to move on and defend the next phase.
Yeah, look, for sure, absolutely. I just wanted an excuse to blame Trossard for
something
else.
No, mate.
But it felt like a day. Look, errors happen in football matches. That is absolutely true. But the best teams, A, make the fewest errors, but B, also make up for their errors in the best way. But it seemed like a day where whatever errors we made would be compounded by more errors. Now, again, I didn't mind the start of the game. I thought like you say, Chris, it was control. It wasn't rip-roaring. It was never going to be. A couple of things were coming off, a few neat passes here and there. I thought there was one cross put in by Calafiori, which had some zip on it, but no one anticipated and made that run. And there was a few more balls I wanted to see as that, because like you say, those slow balls, those dinks over, they're too easy to defend. So, and United just looked not at it. I think... Yeah, they were sitting deep, but in that first half, they were really out of shape.
The crowd? I got the sense the crowd were on United's backs. I don't know, was that the sense in the ground? Like they were quite growing more frustrated with the negativity of their players.
There were one or two moments. I mean, Onana kicking the ball out was hilarious for about 5 minutes.
Ironically, led to their goal.
Let's not go there. But yeah, there was a bit of that. If anything. We sang a bit at the start. It's the away end. We sing a few songs, and United didn't really do anything. Like their fans were flat. Then there were these regular sort of clapping things that they were doing, and I think that was maybe in some reference to the protest or on. I don't know. That wasn't made clear as to what that was about. Which was why it was so disappointing that after we conceded the goal, they got their lift, and it was almost like their players woke up from their slumber. And for that period in the game, all of a sudden, United were a completely different prospect. And the one thing that's been annoying me, yes, the low block thing and trying to beat these teams. Saka, a player who can score a goal out of nothing. Martinelli, a player with proper pace. Those are players we're missing. Jesus, even to some extent. Havertz, who offers clearly, way more than the Marino up top, because he's made for that position a lot more. So there's a reason why we might not be as creative, and it's just so frustrating and disappointing to watch. But the other thing as well was our inability to kill their momentum as well, because all of a sudden our passes were going awry if we got the ball at all, and our pressing was not meeting the mark, and we were being beaten by players, because all of a sudden it was just that momentum shift, that confidence that suddenly they grew from just getting a goal. And like you say, that came from Trossard compounding his errors. It came from not defending the free kick very well at all, and we just weren't able to wrestle it back. It was so frustrating.
Steph, on what you said earlier, what we lacked was pace, and what they discovered in a way was their pace, because they broke with such efficiency later in the game. Once they'd got that confidence, their passes were sticking, and they really exploited the pace they had. I was watching on with envy.
Do you remember the 3-1 game at ours?
Mm.
Rice
late on, and then Jesus sending Dallo into the universe somewhere. Well, the Rashford goal happened exactly like that. They were sitting deep, looking to hit us on the counter, But it was the efficiency that impressed me most with how they scored against us. I feel like one of the goals in the FA Cup game this year was very, very similar. And Fernandes, and even when Solskjaer was in charge of United for that short period in time, what seemed to epitomise. I remember them when they beat City in one of their games. I don't know, it might have been even at the Etihad. Again, it was all sit back and counter, but it was the efficiency with which they countered. We never do it. We never really turn teams. A, because we probably don't have the players to do it, especially at the moment. No Saka and Martinelli from the start. But it's almost like the intent isn't even there. Tim Stillman, obviously, writes for Arseblog and this, that and the other, said what's interesting is he sees it as your manager dictates where your floor is of the team, but the talent you've got dictates your ceiling. And maybe we're just lacking that little bit, but I don't know. It was so frustrating.
Well, we did get back into it. It was a fantastic goal. Timber did very, very well down the right and played a lovely ball for Rice. And Rice, that was a clinical finish, that was. And at that point, that 70-something minutes, we equalised. You're thinking, right, come on then, let's go for the win. But there was only going to be one winner. Well, it felt like that watching the game. I don't know what it was like in the ground. It was, I know, Chris, at various points you said Trossard couldn't finish his dinner. We need the final whistle. We're not going. They're going to get a goal. We're getting increasingly nervous, etc., etc. For me, Ødegaard is most culpable. I thought he should have scored his one. Martinelli, go on.
How did his performance look on the TV?
Busy.
Because from the stands, it didn't look effective.
Busy.
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 Headless chicken, busy.
I wouldn't go that far, but very, very little end product or output.
He was just doing his pirouettes in front of, 2 banks of 5, effectively. But because
it could be because he didn't have the movement ahead of him. You've got Marino's not making the movement that a regular number 9 will make. Trossard, forget about his movement. And
this is a common theme of ours, is to let teams reset before, we have an opportunity to break on them. And I think it's coaching, basically, is that you don't want to transition too quickly if you don't have the pace, and that you're going to get caught on the counter press, if you like. So we seem to be, let them reset and we'll break them down. That seems to be the kind of theme when you're watching us.
That's the problem.
So we're relying on a Rice wonder goal. But yeah, it looks like he was trying to pick passes that just weren't there a lot of the time.
Yes. What was it like in the ground? Did you get a sense that they were going to score?
Yeah, we were tearing our hair out. Because again, it was errors compounding errors. If we're moving on already to the second half, I mean, that Marino pass that then Rice brilliantly saved us from, it was just killer. And the chaos in the box that led to the Raya clawing away of the save. He made 2, considering how much we were blaming him for the free kick.
We'd have lost that game without
the 3 saves. I mean, there was 2 that were kind of low, one maybe even with his legs that would.
Was it Dalot or Maz? Xerxes had the back heel, which was a good save because it was unexpected. It was in very close range as well. Was it Dalot who had the shot, or Mazraoui had the shot that just came off his shin? Like, it was a brilliant reflex save. There was the Bruno Fernandes one for Raya, but also. It wasn't only the Rice last-ditch tackle, which was a dead cert goal, but Gabriel made
it was Rasmus Højlund. It wasn't a dead cert goal.
Who has not scored in 19 goals, but in games, but it's against us. But Gabriel had a fantastic block on Højlund again, where he got his toe to it to just deflect it back behind for a corner. So you could argue that, I don't know what their XG was at the end of the day, but because the Højlund chances that Rice and Gabriel thwarted, they don't even count as shots on target because they never got. But they were glorious. If you reverse that, if that was 2 chances that we spurned, we'd be going mental. Like, Chris would be tapping away, thinking, "We'll regret these. We'll regret these." Like, and it transpires. So, and this is a United team who are like in a really exciting race for 13th with Spurs. Can we just add that in? And West Ham.
Yeah.
So again, I go back to my original question about whether this is a personnel problem or a systemic problem. What do you think?
We need more than a striker. In answer to your earlier question, we do need more than a striker. We can't put the burden on Odegaard and say, there you go, mate, come on, make something happen. Needs to be a greater, a collective effort in terms of creating and scoring. And systemically, I mean, look, we've analysed this to death, and it's just a case of, well, you don't want to rip it all up and start again. It's tweaks.
Okay, but my fear is that Arteta is too conservative and too rigid in that conservatism. And will the personnel make a difference? Because they're going to have to play within his structure. I don't know. I mean, I don't know. That's my fear, and that was my fear about him at the start of last season, about rotation and using his squad and so on. And it's all kind of part of the same.
It's about finding the person with the right profile. Look, where you look at Saka and the way he's flourished within Arteta's kind of criteria of how he wants his players to play, whereas you could argue Martinelli hasn't thrived quite as well within the same team, because maybe he doesn't have the same sort of skill set and how he mentally processes what Arteta wants of him, and that's why he's often running down blind alleys, whereas Saka has got the ability to play within the structure that Arteta wants. So maybe it's a case of finding someone who similar to Saka can play within the system but still flourish.
I saw Jeff Arsenal on Twitter suggest that we go for somebody like Morgan Rogers this in the summer, somebody who's a ball carrier from midfield that will create. I mean, he's done that against us. His surging runs through the middle, and that he will be more attainable than somebody of a higher, a higher level. And Liam Delap, he put forward Liam Delap as a name as well. Another ball carrier, another pacey ball carrier that will offer something different, that will get past the low block because they'll commit players and therefore leave space elsewhere. Go on, Steph, you're smirking or smiling.
Just got Emile Smith-Rowe in my head.
But, okay, he's not tearing it up for Fulham, though, is he? And he didn't for us. So, again, whether that might be coaching or just confidence in his own ability, perhaps. I don't know, but...
Like you say, I think there is an element of, all right, Arteta does have his system and, we are wondering what's going on. But at the same time, we could have a season where none of our players get to double figures in the Premier League. And Orbinho on the socials did put out the stat of when the last time that happened was. And you're talking early 20th, maybe even 19th century, when a player didn't score more than 9 goals effectively in the league. So considering some of these players have been doing that relatively consistently, you would want more goals from Odegaard, Trossard, Martinelli. And all right, Martinelli's been injured recently, but these aren't, and Odegaard
and Saka have missed.
Well, but Saka's already there, or was certainly tracking towards that. Havertz probably would have got there without his injuries. That's fine, but I still think Rice can chip in with a few. When Gabriel, our defender Gabriel, is one of the best finishers at the club for this season, particularly. I don't know if it's a good look. That's all. I just think more players can contribute more, and like you say, whether it's just because they don't necessarily have the level to do that, I don't know. My worry, my thing that's annoying me a little bit is Waneri wasn't given the best opportunity to thrive in this game because he's too far away from the goal. He's not a winger. He's having to play there out of necessity, so I get that to some extent. But actually, he's more effective, centrally inside or with a bit more of a free role to a level, to a certain extent. And also, he looked like he was playing already relatively tired. And
told you he shouldn't have started.
hindsight's a thing.
No, that wasn't hindsight. I said that before the game.
We can see it now. That's what I mean. Who knows? But there's just so little options. It was so telling that Sterling didn't even make it onto the pitch. It just shows the lack of confidence that even Arteta has in him.
Or the lack of, when he has had a chance on the pitch, he's delivered absolutely nothing.
He's delivered absolutely nothing.
So Gary Neville was kind of expressing shock and like, no, have you seen him do anything for us? Like, even the PSV game, didn't I even comment on the PSV game? I thought this was a great opportunity for him to have come out. We've scored 7 goals, 6 different goal scorers, and yet everything he tried, he ran into trouble or it fumbled, and it just didn't happen for him. And I'm not angry with him. I'm sad for him as well, like on a human level. Obviously, I'm frustrated that he hasn't delivered for us. But again, his signing was so opportunistic and unplanned, and points to real negligence on our part in squad building in the summer and subsequently the January. But
so in some respects, then it's probably good that if the reports are to be true, that this Andrea Berta from Atletico Madrid is coming in, and there's no talk of gardening leave starting in the summer or anything like that.
No, he's out. He left Madrid,
and that might hopefully make the plans for the summer come to fruition. Unfortunately, performances like that at the weekend just keeps adding another million and another million onto the prices of the players that we are looking to try and land.
I don't know. I mean, we'll talk about he was part of my in other news, Andrea Berta, but we'll touch on him in a minute. Just on the game, then, Aidan Heaven came on at half time for what's his name, Yoro.
Yoro, yeah.
Yeah, and so Yoro's a £50 million centre back, and Aidan Heaven's a £1 million centre back, and you couldn't tell the difference. I thought he played quite well. I'm a little bit disappointed that he played quite well, but
Yoro is coming back from quite a long-term injury, I think. So he's probably not fully up to
yeah.
His first season as well.
I was delighted that Chido Obi didn't get on the pitch. I must say, I did not want that. You could see that happening. I mean, that Bruno Fernandes chance. I mean, you would have expected him to score the shot, like not allow Raya to make the save. I mean, Raya did brilliant to bounce back up again and scoop the ball out. But I don't know. I don't think I'd have talked to anybody had Chido Obi scored a 92nd minute winner against us. Like, oh, please behave yourself. Anything else to say about the United game, Chris?
No, just glad we didn't lose it. And yeah,
okay.
All this other stuff about Rice celebrating, shushing the fans
stupid.
as well. I mean, come on. It's like the celebration police out again. So please stop it.
Gary Neville, I'm glad Gary Neville, I keep hearing him, because he's increasingly reminding me of the hatred I had for him as a player. As a co-commentator, when his implication that Lewis Skelly simulated to win our free kick that Ødegaard fluffed, like, really, you've singled him out, not to feed into any building narrative there at all. You haven't mentioned any other simulation. I don't recall you calling Bruno Fernandes out much either for his Casemiro. Yeah, absolutely. So it's a bit unpleasant, and so the sooner Sky get rid of Gary Neville and Jamie Carragher, the better. But I can't see it happening anytime soon.
I think coming away from it, that's what's annoyed me. As someone who's there, and so I don't see all the TV coverage, as is live, and you see all this kind of thing retrospectively. I thought the world had gone mad when I started seeing things about the referee marking the wall out wrong. It's like they pace it out with their feet. And in their head, like, no wall is ever exactly 10 yards. It's bloody ridiculous.
And the United wall was further back as well.
Like,
but they just edged forward a bit. Like, they just had a bit more clout than us.
It's just ridiculous. And then the really annoying one, which I wish I hadn't sort of followed up and looked at, was Paul Scholes. Basically on some of the coverage, I can't remember whether he was doing a broadcast for the Premier League and not on Sky, I don't know. But essentially it was just talking, no analysis, no real sort of technical or insightful understanding. Just, Arsenal are, I think his words were, Arsenal are a mid-table La Liga side, no substance. You're like,
he's just too preoccupied sucking toes.
He's just there's just nothing to that. Apparently, Ian Wright and there was someone else on the broadcast kind of took him to task with it, and you just think, yeah, there's a few sort of dinosaurs, where Neville and Carragher almost seemed kind of, light years ahead when they first burst on the scene. You got to remember, we were coming from the era of Andy Gray and Richard Keys.
Yeah.
What they evolved to.
It's a low bar.
No wonder Gary
It's
Neville.
funny. That's funny talking about evolution and Keys.
Well, there's a quote. There's a quote in Batman where it talks about, do you go out a hero or do you stay on long enough to become the villain? And I do feel like we've sort of heard everything that Neville and Carragher have got to say. Arguably, football's moved on even from when they retired. What's that, a decade ago?
Yeah, I was thinking that about Roy Keane as well.
And Keane especially.
The comments he was making offered zero in the way of analysis.
But I think, and at the same time, considering this is the sole, not the sole broadcaster, but the main broadcaster in the UK who charge an absolute fortune to watch these games compared to the rest of the world, by the way, and we don't even get the 3:00 kickoffs like the rest of the world do, that actually you've got to question the level of insight that they're giving. You watch some of the La Liga coverage, the statistics, even little things like there was a game I was watching. It must have been, I don't watch a lot of La Liga, so a big game, whether it was the Madrid derby or something like that. The in-game graphics. Like there'll be a corner and then these little graphics will come up on the screen and it will give you sort of like, like on penalties when it says, he goes 50% one way or the other. They're doing this live and it's fast and it's all these little things. Now, I think it's a little bit Americanized and perhaps not something I personally like. But even as someone who used to, vaguely do that kind of thing and do camera work and stuff like that, the slickness of the whole thing was great. And then you listen to the pundits. They're analysing the game. They're talking about the chances, the movement. When this player goes here, it's because he knows that player is going to try and go. Like it's proper, and
we get
even
then
down
sound bites, don't we?
No, just it's all motivation, heart,
mentality.
It's all up here.
Mentality is the new. What is it? The new. They want it more. Well, it's like they all want it, but they want it in different ways, and it's not a thing, is it?
I try and listen to just or switch on just as the kicker is about to kick off, and mute it at half time and finish it all up at full time, unless of course we've won 7-1, in which case I'll lap up all the inane drivel that they're prepared to dish out.
But that's why things like what we do here is becoming more and more popular. The amount of people you speak to go, I don't even listen to the pundits. Half time, you switch off, you see what's going on online. People are viewing football differently, but Sky are doing exactly the same thing that they've been doing for years.
Well, in fact, Neville and Carragher used to analyse. They used to be very analytical,
like they did.
But they're becoming increasingly talk sporty. They're becoming more you kind of, what is it, rage baiting?
They want sound bites, Holly. They just want
sound
bites.
Yeah.
They want sound bites that they can just punt out there as a line in a meme of sorts.
30 seconds, TikTok, Instagram Reels, it's all that. Yeah, feeding the machine.
Yeah, and interestingly, just to jump in very quickly, just to follow on from that, as it's relative. Match of the day, it's been questioned whether or not they should include more analysis and less of the actual action of the games to sort of split the ratio, alter the ratio, because the argument being people will have already seen a lot of the highlights through, I don't know, YouTube or whatever, and they want to focus more on the they won't, I don't think they will,
but it depends on who's doing the analysis.
Yeah, but it questions whether or not it's going to be the same kind of drivel. You would hope not.
Yeah, but get people like Tim
Fabregas
Stillman on, but it doesn't have to be ex-football. Yeah, it doesn't have to be ex-footballers. Get people who know what they're talking about, who can actually open your eyes to various patterns of play, because like Rice in his post-match interview said, "Oh, we were playing in patterns that we didn't train for, we haven't practiced." And I want someone to step back and show me what he's talking about, because I didn't notice that. I mean, I knew we were giving the ball away, but I didn't notice what he noticed. And he said, "I can't explain why we did that. We just started doing that more and more. We started doing things that we don't do." And I want to know. I want someone to pick on that and say, "Well, okay, what's he talking about?" That was a great open door invitation to shine a spotlight on something tactical that would have educated me.
They're more interested in him shushing the fans.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
But just back on the football, Newcastle are currently 1-0 up at West Ham. There's about 10 minutes left in that game. And again, you said something, Steph, at the start of this podcast about it being a bit of a dead rubber, and I know exactly what you mean by that. However, Arsenal need to be looking over their shoulders.
Yeah, big time.
It's getting quite close. It's still a comfortable-ish gap cushion that we've got, because all these teams behind us aren't going to win all of their remaining games. It's not like
and some of them will play each other. Yeah.
Yes, and they'll play each other. But at the moment, we're sitting on 55 points. We're 4 points ahead of Forest. Far, far superior goal difference. So that's, if teams are level, we'll edge that. We are 6 points ahead of Chelsea now. We play Chelsea. That's quite a big game next weekend. Sunday kickoff is at 1:30, something like that. It's earlier, I think.
2.
Right, 2 o'clock.
At home.
Yeah, we need to win that game. And we win that game with 9 games to go then, and that kind of puts Chelsea 9 points behind us. I think you might be quite confident that you'd maintain that gap at least. Lose that game and everybody else is back in.
All bets are off.
On top of us. Man City losing to Forest, I think, was the better result at the weekend for us. Man City are on 47 points. So they're 8 points behind us. Newcastle will also be on 47 points if that win holds today. Also 8 points behind us.
Newcastle will, because this weekend they play in the League Cup final.
Yeah.
So we're missing a fixture. So we'll have a fixture to gain, as it were. So there will be a sort of false comfort maybe if we pull away slightly from there.
And Brighton on 46 points. I think it's Newcastle. So it's 6 teams, and we're pretty confident that top 5 will qualify for the Champions League, because that is what it's all about. And I don't mind if we finish third, because it just gets rid of that narrative that we finished second 3 seasons in a row. So I'm quite happy for one of these teams behind us to put on a bit of a run and just pip us at the death, so long as it's just down into third place. I don't know, what's the prize? It's about £500,000, isn't it, for each position or something like that? Maybe it's a bit more than that, actually.
I think it might be more.
Yeah, that will just confirm that we've regressed.
Good. So it puts more pressure on getting the summer business right. I don't care. We have regressed, Chris.
I think second or third actually doesn't make a difference.
Yeah, so third.
To me.
Well, I'd rather second than third, personally.
It doesn't matter whether it's second or third. Even if we finish second, we have regressed. Chris, there's no question.
Yeah, no.
Probably by every single measurement, we're worse this season than last season. And you can talk till the cows come home about reasons why, but they are the cold hard facts. We have regressed. We are not as good as we were last season. Simple. Okay, look, we have got second leg of the Champions. We're still in the Champions League though, so not all doom and gloom. And we're defending a 7-1 lead.
They say, don't they? 7-1 is the dangerous scoreline.
It's the dangerous scoreline, isn't it? Yeah.
But here's the thing: there were a couple of us sort of half joking, that gallows humour.
What if they get an early goal?
What if PSV get an early goal? Then, what if PSV get another early goal? Oh dear.
Okay, on that then, Steph, who's your starting 11 for the game?
Do you know what? I've got no idea. Because, right, I've gone with the team that I think Arteta will go with. My team, when I first started doing it, I was going, right, I'm looking at the youth team. Who are
Dan Casey scored a hat-trick for the under-18s
I'm going into the youth things.
Spurs.
Who have we signed up? What 9-year-olds have we got into the summer school? This kind of thing. Because I just want to rest as many people as we can for Chelsea. But I don't think Arteta's going to do that. I think he's going to go for a blend. There will be a blend. There will be a few changes, definitely. And it'll be more about the players he probably needs to get minutes in and the minutes that need to be taken away from others. So I think he's going Raya in goal.
Do you think Neto?
No, because Neto was so bad against Girona. I know David Raya has been going on a few runs lately and might be quite fatigued because he's the fastest player at the club. But ultimately, I don't think he needs a rest. I think he'll be fine. I think he's going White at right back. I think he'll stick with Saliba because there's not much of an alternative there. But Kivior will come in for Gabriel. And Lewis Skelly will come in for Calafiori from the starting position. So, because I think they're basically dovetailing now. I think the midfield three, which is the one I had the most trouble with, but I'm going Odegaard, Jorginho, and Rice. I just don't think he's going to drop Odegaard and Rice. What he'll want to do is get to a point in the game where he feels so comfortable that they will come off. Front line is really interesting. Sterling, Marino, Rice. Sterling, Marino, Martinelli is what I'm going. Just because Martinelli actually looked quite good when he
did. Yeah,
on.
I thought he did.
Quick.
I thought he did. Yeah.
What was very telling, we didn't talk about this in relation to the Man United game. A couple of times when Raya's picked up the ball, he's gone. Raya put his hand up first time when he said no, I didn't get him. But what people didn't necessarily see was Rice having a right go at Raya, saying, "Why aren't you doing it? Why aren't you going?" And then he seemed to be having a go at everyone. Rice was really on one that day. I don't know what it was about that, whether it was the fixture, whether it was just the narrative around the season. I don't know, but he was on one. He was bawling out everyone the way a sort of leader on the pitch does. So, yeah, Martinelli looks all right. Sterling's got to play just because Nwaneri has to be rested. I kept Marino there because I just think without Havertz coming back anytime soon and Jesus out for the season, just the more you can get Marino thinking like he should be in that role, maybe the better. I don't know.
It's almost identical. I don't think he'll go with too many youth team players. I think partly because of the United result as well. He will want to just get them up for the Chelsea game and, like you said, Steph, get the result safe and then bring players off. So the only change I've got, really, two changes. I would put Calafiori ahead of Miles Lewis-Skelly to start. And midfield, as you've mentioned, with Jorginho replacing Partey. And I'm up front, I'm starting Martinelli on the right and Trossard on the left with Marino in the middle. I'm not starting Sterling.
Okay, I've gone for White at right back. I think he'll keep the two centre-backs, Saliba and Gabriel, and I said Zinchenko will play at left back. I've gone for Jorginho, Rice and Marino as my middle three. And I've gone for Sterling, Trossard and Martinelli. I think he'll do rather than what I would do. Personally, I'd have Trossard up in his box. I toyed with
Zinchenko as well. Yeah, didn't know.
I just think he'll keep Saliba and Gabriel and
keep the spine.
Yeah, just that kind of security there. And it should be a bit of a stroll.
Yes, but it'd be really interesting to see how PSV approach it.
Yeah, how are they approaching it?
They're behind Ajax in the league, I think, and so they've got to make sure they do what they need to do in the league, and they've got to look at it realistically and think, okay, 6 goals at Arsenal without reply. You know, even with a few changes here and there. I mean, there'd be riots if anything got even close to that. It would just be ridiculous.
I guess from their perspective, don't lose the game, maybe win it. You know, that's get a bit of credibility that way. They're 8 points behind Ajax, quite a long way now. They're on that poor run. I didn't look to see how they did. Let me see. What's the date? How did they do? Go Ahead Eagles, you'll be pleased to hear, did win away at NEC.
Are they our new Dutch team? Is that what we're saying? They get a mention.
Sponsored by,
PSV beat, I've just lost it. PSV beat Heerenveen 2-1 at the
Heerenveen.
weekend. Heerenveen.
Heerenveen.
Is that correct?
Who's
According
the team
to-
Steve McLaren used to manage?
According to FIFA that I used to play on the computer, Heerenveen. That's how the commentator said it.
Heerenveen.
Okay. Score prediction, Steph.
2-2.
Chris.
I was close to predicting 2-2 myself, actually, like a kind of honourable draw, but I'm going to go 2-1 Arsenal.
Yeah, I've gone 2-1 Arsenal as well.
Because of what you said, Steph, about I wonder how PSV will set up, and I think they'll have written this off deep down, and they'll be going, okay, let's rotate a little bit and push on in the league.
Well, even
Have some fun. See what happens.
Even the players,
Pressure's
even the
off.
players,
I mean, totally.
yeah, completely. It's a free hit now, isn't it? That might make them dangerous.
1 goal dangerous.
Well, I can tell you something. If we don't end up playing a quarter-final of the Champions League this season, I'm not doing a podcast after the PSV game.
Well, I said, if for some reason we didn't go through, there'd be a riot. But I don't know if the number of fans that are actually going to be there could constitute a riot.
Yeah. A disagreement.
Have you seen
the street.
the video clip of the Leeds United fans? I predict a riot.
No.
Is it the Leeds United fans?
I don't know.
Is it Leeds United? Who's? Oh.
Is this in Korea?
No,
because I saw
Ellen Road.
I saw a fan video of like the Leeds United supporters club in Korea or Japan or somewhere. I don't particularly know why, but like there's just all these like, Asian people in a bar watching the Leeds game, Leeds shirts everywhere, all singing. I predict a riot. It's brilliant.
No, it's I mean, it might be 2 or 3 years old. I don't know, but it is. You just reminded me of it there when you said you predict a riot.
Like I say, that and Forest. You said in recent weeks that Forest was the loudest ground you went to. Well, Leeds is up there for me. Oh dear. Yeah, the Premier League is a better place with them in it.
I've got a soft spot for Leeds. I did my teacher training in Leeds. My PGCE was done in Leeds, so I used to go to a few of their games. And they shared something. This was 94, 95, and I found a home from home in their hatred for Manchester United. So it was good. Yeah. Anyway, right. I'm done. You guys done? Anything else? In other news? Oh, Andrea
We're waiting
Berta.
for yours, yeah.
Yeah, you prefaced it earlier.
Well, only that he's like next week he'll be coming in. He's 52, 53 years old.
I was going to say, have you got any stats?
Football 365 did a rundown on his top 10 deals, and he has sold very, very well, which is really important. But he signed his kind of highlights. He signed Rodri. He signed Griezmann twice.
Yes.
And is it John Oblak, the goalkeeper? He
Jan
signed
Oblak.
him as
Jan,
yeah. He signed him.
The best keeper I've ever seen in the flesh. Like that that semi-final, I think it was, in the Europa League. Was unbelievable. Best keeper I've ever seen live.
So he has got a really good. There's a couple of players he bought at the start of the transfer window and sold for double the money by the end of the transfer window, them not having played a minute of football for Atletico Madrid. There's a couple of other, he's bought, I can't remember the centre-back, but he's gone on and played 350 games for Atletico Madrid, winning a couple of titles and so on. So he has got a good track record, certainly judging by Football 365's list of his top 10. And again, I like the fact that, Arteta was obviously had an input, but it was very much led by Richard Garlick and the other kind of, what do you call the group of...
Executives.
The executive committee or whatever they're called,
Yeah.
But it's important that Arteta, is on board with it for sure, because he'll be working closely with him. But it's also important that he's not just a yes man. And I like that, I didn't want the best romantic appointment. I wanted the best person for the job. Amy Lawrence wrote for The Athletic a feature on him as well, and she says he's more Raul Sanllehi than Edu. Not sure she was offering that as a judgment or anything, but it was just like he's more about contacts as well. So, we'll see. Look, he'll be judged by what he does. Like you say, he's in good time for the summer. And it's a big summer for Arsenal because actually this project, as it's been named, will, this is a pivotal summer for the project. It will kind of rise or fall on the basis of what happens this summer. So, I mean, I'm open-minded and confident at the moment, but lose 7-0 to PSV on Wednesday, and that might change.
What I quite like about it is that it came out of left field. I feel like a lot of things that Arsenal have done in the past have been the things that we've not necessarily expected. He wasn't a name that it'd even come up, but not certainly in the things that I was sort of looking at and reading until it was almost basically done. Yeah, like you say, whether it was Jason Ato who's going to get promoted, whether it was Rosicky who's going to come back into the club, whether it was Dan Ashworth from, his £14 million payoff, and all those sorts of things. And so for us to then suddenly go, right, the Atletico guy, okay, right, that's interesting. And I'm just trying to find it because I saw a headline earlier which was basically alluding to the fact that, like you say, this trajectory of improvement that we have been making, you could argue that there's certainly a plateau and maybe even a regression this season for a variety of reasons. And so Arsenal are at a point where, they need to decide what happens next. And it feels like this Berta call is that the club do want to shake things up a bit. It's not about just doing what we were doing but more. It's about, okay, we might be able to do things a little bit differently and see if that makes a difference. And why not? Yeah, absolutely.
And apparently he had genuine interest from PSG and another big club as well. But he's been in London for a while learning English. He was serious about this. He left his post in January, and I think he was, pretty not confident, but very much sold on Arsenal and the Premier League.
Good.
And why not? Like he's been 8 years in Spain. So anyway, right, that's my in other news. Andrea Berta, welcome to the family. Anything else? We done?
No, we're done. Look at that.
Okay, so we'll chat again on Thursday, where we'll look back on the worst result in Arsenal's history, and we'll look ahead to another London derby on Sunday. An important game, actually, but. Anyway, so thanks for the chat, guys. Thanks for listening or watching wherever you are. Have a great couple of days. Enjoy the game on Wednesday, in all seriousness. And we'll see you next time. Cheerio. Bye-bye.
See ya.
Bye. The North Bank, an Arsenal podcast. Subscribe, rate and review on your app, and find us on Twitter, Instagram and TikTok at North Bank Pod. Email hello@thenorthbankafc.com and check out our website, thenorthbankafc.com. Produced by The Podcast Company.